All right, let's crack this open. Welcome to the deep dive, you guys.
Yeah, we finally have the fallout from that Epstein Files Transparency Act from late 2025.
Exactly. And looking at this stack of documents, it's like, well, it feels like we were looking through a keyhole before and someone just kicked the door down.
Oh, absolutely. It's a flood. We're staring at a data dump
Yeah.
finalized just last month in January 2026.
Right.
It's 3.5 million pages,
Right.
nearly 200,000 images, and like 2,000 videos.
Which is why our mission for this deep dive is strictly to ignore the gossip. Everyone is so obsessed with the client list, but
The rumors.
yeah, the rumors. But when you actually read the source material, the real horror isn't who went to the island, it's the structural failure.
Yeah, seeing how these institutions designed to catch predators were actually just at war with each other, it's wild.
Siloed protectionism. Which leads us to the biggest shock for me in these early 2026 releases, the stand-down order.
Right, on July 11th, 2019.
Which is only 5 days after the arrest.
Exactly. The files revealed the FBI issued a formal stand-down directive to the NYPD, and specifically to the Special Victims Unit.
The SVU, the actual experts on sex crimes, they're ready to seize evidence, and the feds tell them to just, well, take a hike.
They insisted every single investigative lead had to route through the Bureau. It effectively handcuffed the Manhattan DA right when securing physical evidence was most critical.
In reading into the background here, this wasn't a one-off mistake, right? This looks like a 30-year habit.
It goes all the way back to Maria Farmer in 1996.
Right. She tried to hand them Epstein and Maxwell on a silver platter.
And the NYPD ignored her, claimed it was a federal issue, and kicked it to the FBI, who then sat on it for a decade without opening a formal investigation.
Just a jurisdictional game of hot potato that let a predator operate openly. So while they were busy body checking each other, you'd assume the DEA would notice the money.
You'd think so.
Because you don't run an operation this size with pocket change.
No, you don't. But the files expose a similar catch-and-kill pattern at the DEA with Operation Chain Reaction.
This part blew my mind. Because I think most people assume the finances were just trafficking payments.
But they found something darker. This was a secret probe running from 2010 to 2015, tracking suspicious wire transfers. About $50 million worth.
Wow.
And the kicker is, they specifically linked $5.6 million of that explicitly to narcotics acquisition.
Wait, actual drug money?
Explicitly. The probe targeted Epstein and 15 others, including that model, Mariana Idukowska, who allegedly moved $2 million.
But then the case was just marked judicial pending and...
Dismantled. 0 drug charges filed. When a $50 million narcotics probe gets quietly turned off, you have to ask who had their hand on the switch.
Right. So domestic agencies are standing down or dismantling probes. And meanwhile, the political fallout from this data dump is getting loud.
Oh, it is chaotic. We have an NPR investigation from earlier this month claiming over 50 pages of FBI interviews about Donald Trump and a teenage accuser are missing.
Missing from the public database. And look, we have to be clear, we're just reporting what's in the files here. The White House has completely denied this.
Right. They claim the files actually exonerate him completely. We aren't picking sides, just laying out the source material.
But it's wild to contrast our political arguing here in the U.S. with what Europe is doing.
Europe is using handcuffs. Just look at February 2026. The UK arrested Prince Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and Peter Mandelson.
And Thorbjørn Jagland in Norway.
Right, the former prime minister charged with corruption. The international legal system is treating this as an active criminal enterprise, while the U.S. system seems paralyzed.
Paralyzed or paid off, because we have to talk about the banks and these suspicious activity reports.
The SARS. Yeah, banking hypocrisy doesn't even begin to cover it. J.P. Morgan Chase flagged about $4.3 million in suspicious activity while Epstein was alive.
Which seems incredibly low for a guy moving hundreds of millions.
It is. But after he died in 2019, they filed retroactive SARS covering $1.3 billion.
$1.3 billion. That's an entire economy they were hiding. They waited until he was dead to grow a conscience.
They waited until the fees were collected and the liability was too high. Same with Leon Black's $170 million for tax planning that the IRS never audited.
Because Epstein wasn't an accountant?
Exactly. The compliance systems only work when it's too late. Which brings us to the February 19th settlement. The estate paid out $35 million.
But the controversial part, and this really stings for the victims, is that the settlement shields the executors' right Darren Indyke and Richard Kahn.
Yeah, it shields them from future civil liability.
So they write a check and walk away protected.
History repeating itself.
It really leaves you wondering about the scale of what we still don't know. If the banks flagged $1.3 billion only after it was safe to do so, what other retroactive admissions are currently sitting in sealed corporate archives right now, waiting for someone to die before you or the rest of the public see the light of day? Something for you to think about. Thanks for joining the deep dive.